right, good evening, everybody. It is way past 4 o'clock on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. We would like to bring this Personnel Human Services Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please. Here. Yes.
Yes, here.
Here. Here.
Here?
Here. All right. Let's see, first up are the minutes for November 1st, 2022. They are moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Opportunity for public input. If there's anyone in the audience today that would like to come forward and go ahead and speak, now's the time. Nick, are you moving over there? No? Okay. All right, then, seeing none, we will move on to Petitions and Communications. And A is a presentation about charging stations in Bay County presented by Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Bacilupo.
Good evening. I just decided I want to be the animal control manager.
Hired.
No, I'm kidding. I don't need another job. So thank you for having us. We all, a lot of us were out seeing the president. We all know what he talked about, you know, wafers and things like that. But what the biggest need we have here in Bay County is we need charging stations. And originally we were talking about charging stations in just downtown Bay City, and then it expanded to the entire county of Bay. So we're looking at doing that where the municipalities that they are in will actually reap the benefits of the charging stations themselves. Unlike where Myers doesn't reap that, Bangor Township doesn't see the funding from that, but that's what we're going to plan on doing. I am going to bring up Wayne Hoffman. He's going to talk to you about the PowerPoint because I have no clue what it says.
Fast one. Well, thank you, everybody. As Mike said, I'm Wayne Hoffman with Wade Trim. I'm our Corporate Infrastructure Funding Director. My role at the company, corporate lead for connecting our clients and communities we work with for funding solutions. I'm based here right in Bay County. I actually live 4 blocks away, but I want to just mention really quick, we're in 9 states and 18 offices, but our second largest office is actually in Bay County. So our head count is just under 70, which I was actually surprised. I didn't know we were the second largest. But we have a lot going on with consumers, energy, and MDOT. But to answer a question, why conduct an EV study, I'm going to show you a couple examples that we've done. One, get ahead of trends. Two, you know, as you were talking about vehicles today, there's a lot of fleet incentives coming out in funding. That's one area to look. What parts of your fleet could be energized through EV. But the top one is funding, getting in line for the funding that's coming. The provisions in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act for charging infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Carbon Reduction Act. There's a lot coming. A lot of people are not ready. So that's definitely my top reason to do an EV study and understand what your needs are. Currently locations in Bay County, there are 14 stations total. 3 of those are public, 11 are private. You've probably seen the ones at Meyer, the Tesla chargers. There's one downtown, and then there's 2 out at State Park. What I see when I see this map is, you know, our northern portions of the county are underrepresented, and we do get a lot of folks coming to our community from outside. So trying to figure out where there's a lot that goes into figuring out where the best places are, whether they should be publicly owned or private owned. In fact, a lot of the funding is actually trying to incentivize private ownership. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I won't get too deep into that. But basically, they don't want a bunch of municipalities owning infrastructure that's going to go out of style in 5-10 years. Let's put it that way. So the private industry can come in and they can be responsible for the operations and maintenance. So there's different models that you can look at, but I'm trying to get to the bottom of that as part of the study. A couple examples of things we've done. We did an EV charging study for the city of Sterling Heights. That focused on, it was kind of broad, looking at their zoning. Private side, what are the impediments there? We're actually doing a mega site study right now for the Great Lakes Bay Economic Partnership, which is a collaboration of all the economic development organizations. So we'd be doing, on a smaller level, that study. We'd be looking at sites throughout Bay County. We also did EV site evaluations and station design for the city of Cleveland, their water system at all their facilities. They actually invested quite a bit, so we ended up doing design. And then we got started in this working with an automotive company. Can't tell you who, they'd send an assassin and kill me, but that's where we got our start in EV. Project approach, just want to tell you, what does this study actually entail? You're able to define your own scope. What are the areas? Do you want to include fleet? Because there's a lot of provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act to energize your fleet. But the one thing that I'll put out there, public engagement is helpful in getting funding. Not everyone sees it as the beneficial, but that's an optional phase. We really get into site selection, concept development, and strategic recommendations. We look at your zoning, make sure everything's up to snuff, all your municipality zoning as well, and then give you a final report that also says this is how you get at the money. So, we're always looking at implementation-focused plans that connect you with the funding in the end. Study components, just wanted to show you site evaluation and some of the site schematics that we do. Other components, review of existing policies, so that would be your zoning, make sure things are up to speed and you don't have any obstacles that you don't know about. Obviously, the funding resources are huge. And this doesn't include design. You're not designing the stations, but we can provide that as well if you get to that stage. So I appreciate the time. I wanted to buzz through this because I know it's late for everyone, but we appreciate this opportunity to present.
Any questions? Mr. Krieger.
So, other than giving us the information, I don't see your hand out asking for any kind of money. Is that something that's going to come down the road, or is it something, obviously you're not doing this for free?
Yeah. So, for example, the one in Sterling Heights we did was $45,000, but we can work with the scope. So the scope was pretty expansive on that one. Working with the DDA and Bay City Light and Power, they're interested in participating as well. Here's the key. To compete for the funding, you really need to show partnership. And, if you're able to show that you're working with other entities and not going, say the DDA goes chases a grant and then the county chases a separate grant, you're not going to compete. Bottom line, there's a lot of mouths out there that are pursuing this money. If you show partnerships and that we're collaborating and we're, not paying 2 consultants for a study, we're paying, 1 to do a more collaborative effort, it's going to pay off in the end. So that's what I'd say there. So.
Well said, Ray.
Yeah, go ahead.
If one was to purchase an electric vehicle and wanted to have some reliability and were to put that one of those charging units at his home or his business, is it any different than the commercial ones that you're talking about?
The private owned?
Yeah.
There is a little difference, and that's where, they set aside $3 billion in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Not a single dime can go to a municipality owning that piece of equipment. The reason why is they don't want you buying a piece of equipment that's obsolete in 5 years. So, they're trying to push the market to, keep everything up to date so you don't have to worry about that. And the industry is going to see a lot of consolidation. So it's like your iPhone. You have a bunch of different apps that do the same thing. You're going to see the same thing in EV. So.
Well, is there more than one? I mean, doesn't Tesla have their own charging unit? And I mean, there's no real regulation. And if a lot of people have electric cars, and you might pull up and say, boy, I need a charge, and it's not the one that you need. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Jim,
Right, no more.
on a lot of these bigger chargers, the level 2s and level 3s, I can see the picture, but the level 3 chargers all have adapters for all types of cars. I have an electric car. I have the charging station, but I can use the charging stations down at the Dow lot by Dow Corning or Dow Chemical, and or I drove to Owasso one time, and they had a plug that had 3 different, one said Tesla, one said this, one said that. And they're all, they fit in the car just fine. So these are the types of charging stations we're looking at. And also, the one thing we want to do, we don't want people passing through Bay County to get up north without stopping in Bay County. And if they have a vehicle in Detroit, we're not going to make it past Bay County to get up north. So they could go on the app, it's called the Charge Up app. They can find that we have 37 charging stations in Bay County, and they can find any one of them. So that's what we want to have happen.
Sure.
Commissioner Krieger?
Yep, so the state park does have a charging station, and that was all put in without any funds coming from the park. I forget exactly if Consumers was involved, who paid for that installation, and people could come in and charge free. Are we looking at doing somewhat, and then we talked about upgrades, so at some point, that charging station might become outdated, and so if it needs to be revamped, whose expenses are going to be needed to do that?
Yeah, the study has no pre-perception on what we're going to, prescribe. What we're trying to do is understand what the county's needs are. So you might look at all your facilities. Do you want to put charging stations at facilities? And that could be free, that could be revenue-based. Is there a gap? And there is a gap in Northern Bay City, or Northern Bay County. And there's different sources. So there's place-based funding, there's corridor funding. So corridor funding is perfect for where we are, I-75. So we're not prescribing anything when we start the study. We're trying to figure out where your gaps are. And the fleet might be an area that you want to review too.
So with the possibility of allocating dollars to be able to fund a survey of this kind, or that would be advantageous because it would then, if the county was doing this, how would that look to those who might be interested to be able to try and go ahead and apply for grant dollars or what have you? Would that be advantageous because now it looks like there's a partnership between ourselves and, say, the city?
Yes.
Because we're funding that study?
Yes, I think to show as many partnerships as you can shows you can pull something off, especially when you're putting it, and these are competitive grant applications. They're not, formula grants. They're going to be competitive. So showing that you've had a plan where you look at place-based, which the DDA is interested in, where in Bay City are the right ones to get people off 75 and park here for a little while and leave some cash. The county's probably more interested in your fleet, your facilities, looking at the corridor, 75, making sure that we have enough spots there. So, we need to define the scope of what you're looking at, but I think it's it's money well spent if you're trying to position for the funds that are coming. And that goes for all infrastructure. I'll put that plug in. That's kind of what I do. Make sure that you're ready to be fundable. So.
Any other questions?
I make a motion to receive.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Any other discussion?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was interesting. Thank you.
All right. I would actually, after receiving that, I know I spoke to a couple people about the possibility of then making an allocation, a move to allocate up to $40,000 from the ARPA money for the possibility of a survey to be done.
We didn't vote on the receipt. No.
What's that? No, we didn't vote on receiving.
No, we
Well,
didn't.
thank you, dear. I appreciate it.
It's getting late.
It is, it's a long day. I got to be honest, I've been up for a lot of hours, but so has everybody else, so I apologize. So, a vote on receiving the study. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now.
Carry on. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back to what I was just saying. Spoke to a couple people about the possibility of adding on to the agenda here, the possibility of allocating up to $40,000 for ARPA, from ARPA funding, which has now been made available, for the possibility of doing a study of the county for electric vehicle charging.
Is it no longer used?
I'll make that motion, seeing that you can't.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Point of order,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chair. If you're going to add something to the agenda, you need to do so at the beginning of the meeting. If the board is going to follow its own board rules and Robert's Rules of Order. If you wish to add this to the agenda after the beginning of the meeting, you are going to need a 2/3 vote of your board to suspend your board rules and suspend Robert's Rules of Order in order to add this to your agenda. So I would suggest that that be a precedent motion.
Okay.
Doesn't say on the agenda you have to do that, though. It only says it on Ways and Means.
Yes, I know, and it's nice that she puts that on Ways and Means, but the reason she puts it on Ways and Means is to conform with Robert's Rules of Order, which this board has adopted pursuant to its own board rules.
Past practice.
Past practice is not an exception in this case. Unless you wish to override
Can I win
Robert's
once?
rules and the board rules, which you absolutely can do. They're the board rules.
Well, I
You can
support-
vote to suspend them so long as you have a 2/3 vote.
I'm going to make a vote to, or a motion to suspend the rules so that we can address this issue.
And I'll support that.
All right. Any other discussion then? All right, all in favor of suspending the board rules at this point?
Maybe you better do a
Aye.
roll call. If it's got to have 2/3.
Better do 2/3 then, do a roll call vote.
Krieger,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Pickett,
Yes.
Coonan,
Yes.
Radke,
Yes.
Bear,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Does that one motion cover both?
I appreciate all of you. That was just to suspend.
That was just to suspend, and
Now you
now
can
we
move
could
to
make
add.
the actual,
Make a motion.
the motion. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to use $40,000 to address this study or whatever we need to do in order to, are we paying this group to do it, or?
I would think.
$40,000 to what entity? Wade Trim.
And what's that going to give us?
A feasibility study
For the whole county?
for EV for the entire county.
All right.
I'll support it.
And this is of ARPA dollars?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that an allowable use?
I
Yes.
believe so, and if it's not, we'll get there when we get there.
Eventually, because now it's got to go through Corporation Council. Been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I would like a report on ARPA for our next meeting, if possible, where we're at and how much we got left, because we don't know.
We have $0.
We got $40,000.
We have
to spend.
$0 left. The only reason you have 40,000 is because you just reallocated the broadband.
I don't want, yes. Yeah,
But I'll absolutely provide you with an updated spreadsheet with the reallocation.
that'd be good.
All right. Any other discussion?
Jen,
Yes.
Laura seems to want to offer something.
Thank you. Under our transportation planning document and our transportation planning grant, EV studies are required to be conducted. They don't have to be by Bay County or the BCATs, but, so it doesn't stipulate how that happens, but the BCATs group, the urbanized area, the transportation planning, the road agencies, are obligated to do that. So as far as a partner, if we can at least mention that in this resolution.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My question is they talked about collaboration so much, so are you planning on going like to Bay City and Essexville and asking if they're going to join in with us and maybe share some of the costs? Or what? I don't know how this is going to work now. So you talked about how important it was, and that they're going to, and some of the stations you're going to say are going to be in this city of Bay City, and they have an opportunity to participate also. And collaboration, if that's part of the mainstays of what this whole program is, should they be included? My question.
Yeah, the city of Bay City has already committed to be a partner in this, as well as the DDA and the county,
Okay, thank you.
and whatever Laura said.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right. Then seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Then we will move that forward. All right. Now we are on to letter B, County Executive, creation of full-time Animal Services Manager for the Bay County Animal Services and Adoption Center.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? I think we kind of had that a little bit earlier. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to item C, the health officer renewal agreements.
So moved?
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I was okay with
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Yes.
That's the replacement.
That is the replacement one,
Yes. All right. Now, on to Corporation Counsel. Item number 1, amendment to Bay County's Freedom of Information Act Procedures and Guidelines.
I'll move it.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Let's see, number 2 is renewal of property and liability insurance with Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Krieger?
Yeah. So we have funding coming back from MMR, correct?
I'm sorry, what was that?
We have money coming back?
The net asset distribution, we generally just turn back over because they can invest it at a higher rate.
And what is the amount this year?
I believe 400 and,
86,918.
there you go.
I wrote it down.
I
think it's the highest ever.
What's, I know it was quite a bit, so how much is in the kitty then?
I believe there was there 1.2? I don't, there was approximately $1.2 million in there prior to this net asset distribution, so if you add the 486 to the 1.2 million. What we've been doing historically for the last couple of years is turning that net asset distribution back over to MMRMA, and it's held just because they can invest in higher return funds than the treasurer can, because the treasurer is very restricted in what he can do in terms of investing our money. The second reason that we've been returning it back over to that fund at MMRMA is because we have an outstanding class action lawsuit against our treasurer, where we have the potential for some substantial liability exposure. And if we do end up having that exposure, we have those funds set aside that we might be able to address some of that exposure with those funds. Right now, I believe the matter is in front of both the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals as well as the Supreme Court in making determinations as to, on foreclosed properties that have been sold that had surplus proceeds, how to make a determination as to what the supposed damage is, whether or not it was the fair market value of the property or just the surplus proceeds that we'd be required to return back to those property owners. Because that calculation hasn't been made yet, the fund is just sitting until we can make that determination.
Okay, thank you.
Now, where does that money show up in our financial case, or our financial summary? That 1 point some million dollars? Is that part of our fund balance?
It is. It is, and it's part of the audit, it's part of the fund balance. I believe that we put it in there 2 to 3 years ago because we discovered that it hadn't been done, and so we did put it in, so it is included in that amount.
That would give me a big bump up.
Yes,
Yes, that is correct.
2 years ago.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the Personnel Director, we'll start off with number 1, vacancies at 911, Department of Criminal Defense and Mosquito Control.
So moved.
All right, any discussion on those? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Number 2, there is the new position, grant-funded Department on Aging, Respite Care Worker.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And we'll move on to number 3, reclassification requests. There are 2 at Recreation Manager and the Gypsy Moth Coordinator.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Now we'll move on to number 4, preliminary breathalyzer test officers, retainment of fringe benefits and wages.
So moved.
Support?
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Number 5, the creation of full-time typist clerk for Animal Services and Adoption Center.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We finally are on to letter F, the Office of Assigned Counsel, reports from October 2022.
I'll move to receive.
Support.
Motion to receive is supported. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Any referrals? Any unfinished business? New business? No closed session?
There's not.
Miscellaneous?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I really would like to make a motion to adjourn.
that's fabulous. Any discussion? Oh, so moved then. All in favor? Aye. We're done.
Yeah, no.